This started with a number at lunch. A friend of mine reads bank annual reports for a living. We were eating something with too much cilantro on it, talking about something else entirely, and he said, almost as an afterthought, that the average major retail bank in this country pulls somewhere between $600 and $900 a year in profit from each of its everyday customers, just regular people, checking, savings, maybe a card. He said it the way you'd mention the weather. I nodded. We finished eating. I went home, and the number sat in my head for the rest of the afternoon because something about it felt off. The story I'd been told my whole adult life, through ads, through the soft cultural background of how banking gets described, was that I paid a small monthly fee for the service of having my money kept safe. They hold. I pay a little. We're square. $600 to $900 a year. In profit, after expenses, after the fee I was already paying. That's not service fee math. That's a different business hiding inside a description of itself. So I did something I had literally never done as a customer. I opened the annual report. It was a PDF, 322 pages in my case, free, on the bank's investor relations page, no login. I scrolled to the section called Segment Performance, page 84. The table of contents listed it but didn't link, the way old corporate PDFs sometimes do. So I scrolled with my thumb on the trackpad for about 40 seconds, watching the page numbers tick up. Most of the report, by surface area, is photographs of executives and bright graphics about community engagement. The actual numbers are in a single block of dense type, in a font 2 sizes smaller than the rest, tucked into a corner of one page. That layout is not an accident. I found the line for retail banking, found the disclosed customer count in a different section, divided one by the other. The number was, almost to the dollar, what my friend had said at lunch. The bank wasn't earning that money in some abstract way. It was earning it from me and from people like me in audited, line-itemed amounts. Nobody puts that figure on a billboard. Nobody opens an account by saying, "Welcome, we expect to make about $740 in profit from you this year." That sentence would feel weird. The weird sentence is the true one. Then I did one more piece of arithmetic. I looked up what the bank had paid me that same year in interest on my savings. About 38 cents per $100 on deposit, annualized. I divided what the bank earned per customer by what it had paid me for the use of those deposits. The ratio made me close the report. Not dramatically, quietly. The specific quiet of realizing you've been reading a sentence wrong, in the same place, the same way, for 32 years. And the sentence had been printed correctly the entire time. This video is about the sentence. I want to spend the next few minutes on 3 words. Just 3. Hold, yield, service fee. These are the 3 words almost every bank customer thinks with, and all 3 point in the wrong direction. Not the wrong amount. The wrong direction. Start with hold. When you put money in a checking or savings account, the cultural shorthand is that the bank is holding it. The word implies storage, a safe, a vault. Your money sits there like a coat in a coat check, and you can come pick it up. But the bank does not hold your money. The bank lends your money. Within hours of your deposit, that money, or its regulated equivalent, is back out the door to somebody else at an interest rate between 5 and 20 times higher than anything the bank pays you. The bank is required by law to keep a small percentage on hand for withdrawals. Everything else is loaned out. Your deposit is not in a vault. Your deposit is in somebody else's mortgage, in somebody else's car loan, in somebody else's credit card balance. Hold is the wrong word. Lend is the right one. Now look at yield. The bank pays you what they call a yield, or interest, or APY. The underlying word in your head is yield. Your money doing work, producing a return, the return is yours. That image is also wrong. The interest you receive isn't a yield. It's a commission. It's the fraction of the bank's lending profit that the bank, at its discretion, decides to share with you. the supplier of the underlying material. The bank lends your money out at, say, 8%, pays you something on the order of 0.5%. The difference between those two numbers isn't friction, it's the bank's profit margin on your raw material. Your 0.5% is your supplier commission. The third word is the most inverted: service fee. The fee you pay your bank, monthly maintenance, account minimums, ATM charges, gets described as a service fee. The service in question supposedly is having your money held, processed, kept safe. Now stop and look at what's actually happening. You're providing the bank with raw material, money, at a cost to the bank of essentially zero. The bank then resells that raw material at 5 to 20 times what it cost. By the math, you are the bank's supplier, and on top of supplying raw material at near zero cost, you are also paying the bank a monthly fee. You are paying your buyer to keep buying from you. Imagine a farmer paying a grocery store for the privilege of selling them produce at below cost. That's the structure of a checking account fee. Not as metaphor. As literal description of the cash flow, the farmer is paying the grocery. The grocery is calling it a service. The farmer doesn't notice because the contract uses the word customer. Nothing fraudulent is going on here. The contracts are accurate, the disclosures are filed, the math comes out to exactly what the bank says it comes out to. The trick isn't in the math, the trick is in the nouns. The vocabulary is the lock. Now let's pick it. Walk through what actually happens when $1,000 enters a bank as a deposit. You deposit $1,000. From your point of view, the transaction is over. From the bank's, it has just begun. The bank holds back a percentage as reserve. Call it 10%. So $900 is now available to be loaned out. The bank loans that $900 to another customer at, say, 8%. That generates $72 of interest income for the bank per year. Separately, the bank pays you something like 0.5% on your original $1,000, $5 a year. 72 earned, 5 paid. The difference, $67, is the gross margin on the operation. After operating costs, the net is somewhere between $30 and $60 per thousand on deposit. Now multiply. The average retail customer keeps somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000 across checking and savings combined. Multiply by the customer count. A major retail bank has on the order of 40 to 100 million retail customers. Even with conservative inputs, the arithmetic lands you in the tens of billions of dollars of annual retail banking profit. That number is in the annual report, broken out on a single page. It's not hidden. It's just rarely read. What I just described isn't a moral problem. It isn't a conspiracy. It's logistics. A logistics company sources raw material at a low price, resells it higher, captures the margin. The raw material is money. The supplier is you. The buyer is the borrower at the other end. The bank is the wholesaler in the middle. Once you see banking as logistics rather than service, the whole industry becomes legible. The only oddity is that in most logistics industries, the supplier knows they're a supplier. In this one, they don't. The cattle rancher knows the slaughterhouse is the buyer. The farmer knows the grocery store is the buyer. Only in retail banking has the supplier been so cleanly repositioned as the customer that the supplier pays the buyer for the relationship. Once you see the cleanness of the inversion, anger stops being the right response. The right response is the practical question. Now that I know I'm a supplier, how should I behave? There's a class of people who behave as if they know they're suppliers. They keep their checking at one place, usually whatever has convenient ATMs, and they hold almost no extra cash in it, just enough to cover the month. Every dollar above that buffer is parked somewhere that pays them an actual rate of return. They do not, ever, keep $10,000 sitting in a savings account at 0.5%. They are not loyal to banks. The banks are not loyal to them. Now the other class. The class I was in. They have a primary bank. They've been with it for years. The savings account pays a fraction of a percent. They know the rate is bad. They have not changed it. When the bank charges a small monthly fee, they pay it. They are not bad with money. They are answering the wrong question. The question they're answering is, am I a customer of a good bank? The answer is yes. Sure, the app is fine. The question they are not answering is, am I being paid fairly by the buyer of my raw material? The answer to that one for most major retail banks is no. Both answers are true. They're answers to different questions. The question, not the bank, is the variable that determines outcomes. I'll be honest about which class I was in. I had a savings account in 2013 that was paying me, on the statement, 4 cents per $100 per year. 4 cents. Most months it rounded down, so the line item just said, interest paid. $0.00. I had that account for 9 years before I moved the money. 9 years. I didn't move it because the amount felt small, the effort felt large, and I had a vague sense that all banks are basically the same anyway. None of those reasons was correct. The effort was about 20 minutes, and the banks are not basically all the same. I'm telling you this, so when I say change the question, you know it's coming from someone who didn't change it for a decade. If any of this is hitting somewhere, leave a like before you forget. It tells me whether to keep making things in this register. I've been building toward a single question for the entire video. Here it is. How much is my money earning for other people, and what is my cut? Not how much am I earning. Not what's the interest rate on this account. The two-part supplier question. Buyer revenue in part 1, supplier commission in part 2. The ratio between them is the answer. Here's what that looks like in practice. The first number is the average lending rate the bank charges across its consumer products. This is in the annual report, in a section usually called net interest margin. For a typical major retail bank, blended, this number is between 5 and 10% annualized. Call it 7. The second is the rate the bank pays on deposits, around 0.5%. 7% divided by 0.5% is 14. The buyer is earning 14 times what the supplier is being paid. The buyer is keeping 93% of the value generated by the raw material. The supplier, me, is keeping 7% of the value generated by my own money. That's the arithmetic. It's two numbers from two public documents divided, both available to anyone, free, online, in under 5 minutes. Here's the move I want you to make. Stop calling yourself a customer of your bank. Not as a political gesture, not as a complaint, as a simple act of using the right word for what you actually are. You are a supplier. You provide raw material, money, to a buyer who resells it. The buyer pays you a small commission and charges you a small fee on top of that. If you ran a small business and a buyer was paying you 7 cents on the dollar of resale value, while charging you a monthly relationship fee, you would, within a week, be on the phone with 3 other buyers. The reason you have not made that call about your bank is that nobody told you the call was an option. Customers stay, suppliers shop. The single most useful thing you can do with the rest of this video is change what you call yourself in your own head when you think about your bank. Once made sincerely, that change propagates through every financial decision you make for the rest of your life, automatically, because you cannot unknow it. Last thing, I'm not going to ask you to switch banks. I'm not going to ask you to download an app. None of those things would address what this video is actually about. What I'm going to ask is much smaller. 60 seconds, 2 numbers, open a browser. Search the name of your bank, plus the words Annual Report. The first or second result will be the bank's Investor Relations page. Click. The most recent annual report will be a downloadable PDF. Open it. Use the search function, Control F or Command F, and type segment performance, or consumer banking, or retail banking. Find the line for the consumer segment. Note the net income. Then, in a different section, usually management's discussion and analysis, find the number of retail customers. Divide the net income by the customer count. That number is what the bank earns from each customer per year. Now open your most recent bank statement. Find the year-to-date interest you've been paid. Compare it to the per-customer profit number from the annual report. Hold both numbers in your head for 60 seconds. That's the entire instruction. Don't decide anything yet. Don't move any money. Just hold the two numbers next to each other and look at them. Most people will feel two things during those 60 seconds. The first is a small, quiet shock. The numbers, when they're next to each other, are usually farther apart than people expect. The second feeling, around the 30-second mark, is the recalibration of the word customer. You will reach for the word, and it will feel slightly off, like a shoe that's a half size wrong. That feeling is the entire intervention. After that, what you do is yours. The numbers will tell you. And whatever you decide, you'll be deciding from the position of someone who knows what they are, which is the position the entire commercial banking model depends on you not occupying. The annual report is public. The math is public. The arithmetic is public. The only thing the bank kept private was the noun. You are not a customer. You are a supplier, the most consistently underpaid one in the entire commercial financial system. 60 seconds with the report changes the noun. The noun changes everything else. That's what banks hope you never figure out. You just did.